She said, "I'm taking a marriage sabbatical. We stay married, but I date freely for 6 months." She'd read it in a self-help book. I said, "That sounds like divorce." Then I called my lawyer that afternoon and filed first. When she finished her book and came to discuss the terms. Original post. I, 36 male, have been married for 7 years. Together for 9 total. 2 kids, a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. I work as a logistics coordinator for a distribution company. It's not glamorous, but it pays $74,000. It's stable, and I've been there 8 years. My wife is a dental hygienist. Makes about $62,000. Combined, we do fine. Not wealthy, not struggling. We own a 3-bedroom house with a mortgage that has $188,000 left on it. Both our names on the deed. I'm telling you the financial stuff up front because it becomes important later and because I want you to understand that this isn't a story about a rich guy with options. I'm a middle-class dad with a mortgage and a Costco membership and a 10-year-old truck. I don't have leave money. I didn't have a backup plan. I just had a lawyer's number that my coworker gave me 6 months ago when he went through his own divorce, and I never thought I'd use it. My marriage wasn't perfect. I want to be honest about that. We've been in a rut for probably the last 2 years. The kind of rut where you're co-parenting efficiently, but you've stopped being a couple. Date nights stopped. Conversations got logistical. Who's picking up the kids? Did you pay the electric bill? There's a leak under the bathroom sink. We hadn't been intimate in about 4 months when this happened. I knew something was off. I just thought it was the normal wear and tear of 2 working parents with young kids. I thought we'd get through it. My wife started reading self-help books about a year ago. At first, I thought it was great. She was reading stuff about mindfulness, communication, personal growth. She joined an online book club, one of those Facebook groups with about 15,000 members. She talked about the books at dinner, and some of the ideas were actually decent. I even read one she recommended about emotional intelligence. It was fine. Then the book selection started shifting, less about communication and more about reclaiming your authentic self and decentering your marriage from your identity. I noticed the language in our house changing. She started saying things like, "I need to honor my journey," and "I've been performing wife instead of being myself." I didn't love it, but I figured she was processing something and I should give her space. 3 weeks ago, she sat me down after the kids were in bed. She had a book on the coffee table, some paperback with a sunset on the cover and a title I'm not going to name because I don't want to give it more attention. She put sticky notes on about 30 pages. She looked like she was about to deliver a TED Talk. She said, "I want to take a marriage sabbatical." I said, what? She explained it. The concept from this book is that married couples can take a structured break, typically 3 to 6 months, where both partners are free to explore connections outside the marriage. You stay legally married. You stay in the same house, if applicable. You continue co-parenting, but you date other people freely, with radical transparency. She said she wanted 6 months. She said she'd already thought about the logistics. She would date on weeknights when I had the kids. I work earlier and get home earlier, so I do most of the evening parenting already. She wanted me to also feel free to explore, but said she understood if I needed time to come around to the idea. She discussed it with her book club, and they were overwhelmingly supportive. I sat there for about 30 seconds, which apparently felt long to her because she started talking again. She said this wasn't about me. It was about her growth. She said she loved me, but she'd lost herself in the marriage. She said the book had changed her perspective on what commitment really means. I said, "That sounds like divorce." She laughed. Actually laughed. Like I'd said something charmingly naive. It's not divorce. It's the opposite of divorce. It's choosing to strengthen the marriage by giving each other space to grow. You want to sleep with other people and stay married. That's not space to grow. That's just cheating with a self-help book as an alibi. Her face changed. She hadn't expected pushback. The book club had apparently gassed her up so thoroughly that she genuinely believed I would either agree immediately or at least take a week to process. She said, "This isn't cheating. Cheating is doing it behind someone's back. I'm being transparent." Okay, I'm going to be transparent too. If you start dating other people, I'm filing for divorce. That's not a threat. That's just what's going to happen. She got quiet. Then she said, "You're being reactive." The book says the partner who hasn't read it often has a fear-based response. You should read the book before you make any decisions. I don't need to read a book to know what a marriage is. She picked up her book, went to the bedroom, and closed the door. I slept on the couch that night. Not because I was kicked out, I just needed to think. Here's the thing. I lay on that couch, staring at the ceiling, and something occurred to me that I couldn't shake. She hadn't proposed this theoretically. She'd already thought about the logistics. She'd picked weeknights. She discussed it with her book club. This wasn't a woman floating an idea. This was a woman presenting a plan she'd already decided on and framing it as a conversation, which meant one of two things. Either she'd been thinking about this for a long time and had already mentally checked out, or she'd already met someone and was looking for a permission structure. Either way, I was looking at the same ending. I called the lawyer the next afternoon, the one my coworker had recommended. Got a consultation that Friday. I didn't tell my wife. Not yet. I needed to understand my position before I opened my mouth again. The lawyer was straightforward. He said in our state, divorce is no fault, so the marriage sabbatical thing was legally irrelevant. It wouldn't help or hurt either of us in court. He said the house would likely be split. One of us would probably have to buy the other out or we'd sell. Custody would likely be some form of shared, probably 60/40ths or 50/50 depending on schedules and the kid's school situation. He said filing first doesn't give you a legal advantage exactly, but it does put you in the position of having your paperwork together, your documentation in order, and your timeline set. He said, the person who files first is usually the person who's thought it through. Judges notice preparation. I filed the following Monday. Had my wife served on Wednesday. She was at the kitchen table when the process server came. I was at work. She called me 11 minutes after it was delivered. I know because I watched my phone ring and checked the time. I let it ring. She called again. I picked up the second time. You filed? Are you insane? I said a sabbatical, not a divorce. And I said it sounds like divorce. I wasn't kidding. You didn't even give me time to explain. I haven't even finished the book. You don't need to finish a book to tell me you want to date other men. That part was pretty clear on chapter 1. This is not what I wanted. What you wanted was permission to cheat on a schedule. I'm giving you something better. Complete freedom. Permanently. She hung up. I went back to work. My hands were shaking. I'm not going to pretend they weren't. Update 1, 9 days later. A lot has happened. I'm going to try to be organized about this because my brain feels like it's running on caffeine and spite right now. The night after she got served, she came home. We were still in the same house at this point, and tried to have a calm conversation. She sat at the kitchen table with the book in front of her like it was a legal document, and said, I think there's been a massive misunderstanding. I said, there hasn't. She said, the sabbatical isn't about wanting other men. It's about finding myself. The dating component is optional. We could negotiate that part. You literally said date freely for 6 months. Those were your words. That's the book's framework. I was just presenting the concept. We were supposed to discuss the terms and customize it. Great. I've customized it. My version is called divorce. She didn't appreciate the humor. Over the next few days, the house was tense but functional. We were civil around the kids. I slept in the guest room. She slept in the master. We traded off morning and evening routines with the kids like we were running shifts at a warehouse. The kids didn't know what was happening, which was the one thing we both agreed to protect. Then the book club got involved. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean her online book club. This Facebook group with thousands of members became an active participant in my divorce. She'd apparently been posting about our situation in there, because one evening she showed me her phone with a thread of responses from women in the group telling her that I was exhibiting control behavior and weaponizing legal action against her vulnerability. One woman wrote a paragraph about how the patriarchy conditions men to view female autonomy as a threat. Another one said I was punishing her for having the courage to ask for what she needs. I read about 4 comments and handed the phone back. Cool. Are any of these women family law attorneys? This isn't funny. I agree. None of this is funny. She told me the group had suggested she get her own lawyer. Good. She should. I told her that directly. You should absolutely get a lawyer. This is a legal process, and you need representation. She looked at me like I'd said something suspicious, like me encouraging her to get a lawyer was somehow a trap. It wasn't. I just wanted this done properly. She got a lawyer by the end of that week. A woman from a firm that does a lot of family law. Fine. My lawyer said that's a competent firm and to expect standard proceedings. Nothing scary, just the machinery of divorce doing its thing. Now here's where the entitlement escalated. The Monday after she got her lawyer, she came to me with what she called a fair proposal. She wanted the house, primary custody. She suggested I get every other weekend, and spousal support for 2 years while she transitions. Her reasoning: she'd been the primary emotional caretaker of the family and needed stability. I'm going to repeat this. The woman who wanted to date other men while staying married to me was now asking for the house, the kids, and monthly payments. The audacity was genuinely impressive. I mean that. I was almost in awe. I told her my lawyer would respond to her lawyer. She said, "Why can't we just talk about this like adults?" I said, "Adults don't ask for permission to cheat on their spouse and then request a reward when it doesn't work out." She told me I was being cruel. I told her I was being accurate. The next escalation came from her mother. This woman, who I've had a perfectly fine relationship with for 9 years, called me that Tuesday and opened with, "I don't know what's happening between you two, but my daughter tells me you're trying to take her kids." I was not trying to take her kids. I had proposed 50-50 custody through my lawyer. 50-50, equal. But my wife had apparently told her mother that I was going for full custody and threatening to take the children. This was a complete fabrication, and it was the first of several. I told her mother, as calmly as I could, that I was seeking equal custody and nothing more. She said, "That's not what my daughter says." I said, "Then your daughter is lying to you, ma'am." She hung up on me. Her father called me an hour later. He's a quieter guy, usually stays out of things. He said, "Son, I don't know the details, but is there any way you two can work this out? Divorce is hard on kids." I told him I agreed that divorce is hard on kids, and that I wished his daughter had considered that before proposing a marriage sabbatical where she dates other men. He was quiet for a very long time. Then he said, "She told us it was a time apart to work on the marriage." I said it was not. He thanked me for being straight with him and hung up. I got the sense he was going to have a very different conversation with his daughter than the one his wife had with me. Meanwhile, at work, I was barely holding it together. My boss noticed I was off and pulled me aside. I told him the broad strokes: marriage ending, things are messy. He told me to take whatever time I needed for legal stuff and that HR could point me toward the employee assistance program. I appreciated that. Didn't use it, but appreciated it. The thing that was messing with me the most wasn't the legal stuff. It was the house. Sitting in the same house with someone who's simultaneously asking to date other people and asking for your home in the divorce. Cooking dinner in a kitchen she wants to take from you. Watching your kids play in a yard that's being negotiated over. It's surreal. It makes you feel like a guest in your own life. My lawyer told me to stay in the house. He said leaving before the divorce is finalized can hurt your claim to the property. So I stayed. Guest room. Every night. For weeks. Update 2. 16 days later. Final update. This is going to be long, but I want to get it all down because I think writing it out is part of how I process it. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected, partly because my lawyer had everything organized from day one, and partly because her initial demands were so far from reasonable that even her own attorney seemed to know they wouldn't hold up. Let me walk through what happened. Her lawyer sent over a formal proposal that mirrored what she'd told me at the kitchen table. House, primary custody, 2 years of spousal support. My lawyer responded with our position: sell the house and split equity, 50-50 custody, no spousal support for either party. Our incomes were within $12,000 of each other. There was no financial basis for support. We both worked full-time throughout the marriage. Neither of us had sacrificed a career for the other. Her lawyer came back with a counter. She keeps the house, buys out my equity over 5 years, 60-40 its custody in her favor, and 1 year of transitional support. My lawyer called this a dressed-up version of the same bad ask, and countered with the same 50-50 and sell the house position. While the lawyers went back and forth, things at home got worse. She'd started staying out later on weeknights. Not dramatically late, like 9:30 p.m. instead of the usual 6:30. She'd say she was at a friend's house or had dinner with a coworker. I didn't ask questions. I didn't snoop. My lawyer had told me not to engage in surveillance or confrontation because it wouldn't help my case and could hurt it. So I just noted the times she came home and wrote them down. Not for court, for me, because I needed to know I wasn't making this up in my head. Then came the conversation that changed the trajectory of everything. My son, my 5-year-old, asked me one morning while I was making him breakfast, "Daddy, who's the man who picked up Mommy last night?" I put the spatula down. "What do you mean, buddy?" I looked out my window when I heard a car. A man was in the car, and Mommy got in. I asked him what the car looked like. He said it was dark and shiny. I asked if he'd seen the man. He said no, just that it wasn't me. Then he asked for more syrup and moved on with his life because he's 5 and syrup is a priority. I didn't react. I poured the syrup. I got him to school. I sat in my truck in the school parking lot for 10 minutes. Then I called my lawyer. My lawyer said this was relevant but complicated. In our no-fault state, infidelity doesn't directly impact property division. However, and this is the part that matters, it can impact custody if the court determines the parent's behavior demonstrated poor judgment regarding the children. A 5-year-old witnessing his mother being picked up by an unknown man at night during active divorce proceedings isn't great for the stable primary custodian narrative she was building. My lawyer said, "Don't confront her. Don't mention what your son said. Just document it. Date, time, and what the child reported. We may need it." I documented it. 3 days later, I was doing laundry, one of the shared chores we still split, and found a receipt in the pocket of her jeans. A restaurant I'd never heard of, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, $127.43 for a Tuesday night. I didn't photograph it. I didn't keep it. I just noted the date and the amount. It matched a night she'd come home at 9:45 saying she'd grabbed dinner with a coworker. I want to be clear about something. I was not surprised. The sabbatical pitch had always been about a specific person or at minimum a specific desire. The book was a delivery mechanism. By this point, I'd already processed the betrayal. What I felt wasn't heartbreak. It was vindication. I made the right call. I was just collecting confirmation. The turning point in the legal proceedings came about a week later. Her lawyer requested mediation, which my lawyer agreed to because it's standard and judges like to see that both parties attempted it. We sat in a conference room. Me, my lawyer, her lawyer. A mediator at the head of the table. Her lawyer presented her case. Primary custody. Keep the house. Transitional support. The argument was centered on her being the more present parent, and the home providing stability for the children. My lawyer then presented our case. He was surgical. He laid out the work schedules. Mine ends earlier. I do school pickups 4 days a week. I handle bath time and bedtime routines on weekdays. I make their lunches. I take them to their pediatrician appointments. He had documentation of all of it. He presented the financial case. Near equal incomes, no dependency, no career sacrifice. He presented the mortgage details, showing I'd made every payment from my account for the last 2 years because we divided bills and the mortgage fell on my side. Then he addressed the custody concern. He didn't mention infidelity. He didn't mention the restaurant receipt. He didn't need to. What he said was, "My client has documented multiple occasions over the past month where the respondent has been absent from the home during evening hours when minor children were present. On at least one occasion, the older child reported to my client that the respondent left the home at night with an unknown individual. We're not seeking sole custody. We're seeking equal custody. But we want the court to evaluate whether the respondent's recent pattern of behavior reflects the stability she claims to offer." My wife turned white. Her lawyer asked for a break. They stepped out for about 15 minutes. When they came back, her lawyer's tone had completely changed. She said her client was willing to discuss more equitable custody arrangements. The mediation session lasted 4 hours. By the end of it, here's what we agreed to. The house gets listed and sold. Equity split 50-50 after the mortgage is paid off. At current market value, we're looking at roughly $45,000 each. Not life-changing money, but it's something. Custody, 50-50, week on, week off. Holidays, alternating. Both parents within the same school district. This was my goal from the start. I wasn't trying to take her kids. I was trying to keep mine. Spousal support, none. Both ways. Clean break. She keeps her car. I keep my truck. Retirement accounts stay separate. We'd never combine them. Personal belongings already divided. That was it. Clean. Fair. Equal. Exactly what I'd asked for from the beginning. Now here's the part people keep asking about. What happened when the dust settled and reality hit her? About 5 days after mediation, while we were both still in the house waiting for the listing, she came to talk to me. It was late. Kids were asleep. She knocked on the guest room door, which was unusual. She usually just texted me if she needed something logistical. She sat on the edge of the bed. She looked tired. Not crying. Just deflated. She said, "I don't understand how we got here." I said, "You asked me for a marriage sabbatical. I asked for space. I asked for us to try something different. You asked to date other people. While married to me. While our kids slept down the hall." The book said, "I don't care what the book said. I care what you said. And what you said was that you wanted to be with other men while keeping me as a safety net. I'm nobody's safety net." She said, "The sabbatical was supposed to bring us closer. It brought us to a mediator's table, dividing our assets. So I'd say it worked exactly as well as I told you it would." She stared at the floor for a long time. Then she said, "I think I already know the answer, but is there any chance we could stop this?" "No." She nodded, got up, left the room, closed the door quietly. I lay there for a while. And yeah, that hurt. Not because I wanted her back, but because I remembered the person I married. The one who made me laugh in the car on our first road trip. The one who cried when our son was born and looked at me and said, "We made him." That person was real once. And now she's someone who reads a self-help book and burns down a family because a Facebook group told her she deserved to explore. The gap between who she was and who she became is the saddest part of all of this. The house goes on the market next week. The realtor walked through yesterday and said we should list at $310,000. After the mortgage, closing costs, and the realtor's cut, we're looking at about $40,000 each. Less than I originally estimated. Welcome to real estate math. I signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment about 8 minutes from our current house. Close enough that the school situation stays the same. She's apparently moving back in with her parents temporarily until she figures out her next step. I know this because her father told me, not because she did. Her father, by the way, called me one more time. He said, "I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. I don't agree with everything, but I understand it." Then he said, "Take care of those kids." I told him I would. That conversation lasted about 90 seconds, and it was one of the most decent exchanges I've had through this entire thing. The kids are okay, or as okay as they can be. My son asked me why mommy and daddy aren't sleeping in the same room anymore. I told him that sometimes grown-ups need their own space, but that we both love him and his sister the same as always. He said, "Okay," and asked if we could get pizza. We got pizza. My daughter is 3. She doesn't understand what's happening. She just wants to be wherever someone will read her a book. I read her 3 books every night. I will continue to read her 3 books every night for as long as she lets me. I'm not thriving. I'm not broken. I'm somewhere in the middle where everything tastes a little flat and the future is blurry, but the next step is always clear. Get up. Go to work. Get the kids. Make dinner. Read the books. Go to sleep. Repeat. That's the algorithm right now, and it's enough. The self-help book is still on the coffee table in the living room. I haven't touched it. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to burn it. I'm just going to leave it there for the next family who buys this house. Maybe they'll put it in the recycling. Maybe they'll read it and have a better experience. Maybe they'll use it as a coaster. Not my problem anymore. If you're reading this and your partner comes to you with a plan they got from a book, a podcast, a Facebook group, or a TikTok therapist, a plan that involves rewriting the rules of your marriage while keeping all the benefits, trust your gut. Your first reaction is usually the right one. Mine was. I said, "That sounds like divorce," and I was right. The only thing I did wrong was being surprised. Thanks for reading. Go hug your kids if you've got them. That part doesn't need a sabbatical.